Hey, it's Bronson Modern Gods. I am John.
And I'm Richard.
Hey, we are here with you on a Monday. Hope everybody's doing well. We've got our underrated books of the week. We've got our hot book of the week, and our main topic. What are we looking for in 2022? In life?
More like in comic books.
Oh, okay. For our comic book collections, we're going to be going over our top wanted, most wanted books for the next year. Let us know how your list compares to ours. By the way, if you're not following us at Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods, why don't you do that for us? And if you like this video, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. All those things help us reach more people like you. And that's a nice little community that we want more to be a part of. So thank you for that. And it's time now for our hot book of the week. What is it, Richard?
Yeah, this week the hot book is, surprisingly enough, Spider-Man #1 from 1990.
What is happening? I'm confused.
We're seeing interest in these high volume books. This was not a rare book, people. The print run was over 2 million for this particular book. There are a number of different versions of it. There's a direct version. There's a polybag direct version, which is for the newsstand. There was a silver. There was a gold UPC, which seems to be fairly rare, and then finally a platinum. So there's a lot of different versions. The main thing for this book, though, is that iconic Todd McFarlane cover.
That's the one. And people love this book. And Todd is having a bit of a comeback with his Gunslinger Spawn and the Spawn universe happening, and hopefully more movies and things like that. So people are just bullish on Todd McFarlane. This book, X-Men #1, X-Force #1, I see these go up and I shake my head. I was managing a store, at this time, well, Richard, we had cases, literal unopened cases of this book in the back room. And I guess supply and demand, it just took 30 years.
But I still think that, there are still warehouse finds for this title.
Oh.
There are cases still sitting there unopened all these years later. And if this book continues to rise, you'll see those kind of show up in eBay listings.
I also think there's a lot of younger kids. I say younger kids, but I mean adults in their 20s who like Todd McFarlane and weren't around for this, and they don't have a copy of it, and they don't realize that we were sitting on unsold copies forever. I will say 2 of these variants are genuinely tougher to find. The gold second print newsstand edition. That is a tough one. It's selling for about $241 for 90-day GPA, although the last sale was just for $153. A little outlier there on the low end. And that platinum edition, which was an incentive given to retailers, is kind of a thank you for ordering so many of these. Thank you. Those are going for slabbed in a 9.8, $3,500, which is nothing to sneeze at. Raws are about $300. I wouldn't say they're 9.8s if they're sitting around on eBay for $300.
Now there's over 10,000 of these platinum variants out there. The thing is, Marvel.
Pause for a second. 10,000 platinum retailer incentives. So let me take you back to 1990. There were 10,000 retailers, because you had people that were like selling baseball cards and sports cards, getting into comics, and just it's amazing. We had 10,000 of these retail accounts back then. That just struck me.
Yeah, you're right. We've definitely slimmed down over the years. But I guess the paper used on this platinum cover was a better paper than Marvel typically use. They wanted to kind of reward those retailers with this platinum variant. But apparently the paper did not handle the print run very well. So there are, the typical bindery spine flakes that show up on some of the books that DC puts out, for example.
Yeah, so, they probably needed a heavier stock to handle that ink.
Yes. So, if you see that on the spine, it's not necessarily an issue to be concerned about grading, because this is a known manufacturer issue with this particular book. Still, 10,000 is not, even though it's going for 3,500, 10,000 really makes this not a rare book.
Right. Yeah. So, well, I have to wonder how many of those 10,000 stayed with the retailer. You know, I know my boss at the time kept his. He wasn't letting it go anywhere. This is before eBay. So I don't, who knows where it ended up, you know, in the ensuing years. But yeah, 10,000 is a pretty heady number for a variant.
But you know, this goes to I think the current trend of iconic covers rising in value. You've got this book, which is easily one of the most recognizable Todd McFarlane covers. You've got Spawn #1 that has been going up in value here recently. So I think people need to respect, even with that print quality or print quantity, they need to respect this book as a title.
And quick quiz, Richard, what is the first time this cover was homaged by Todd?
I don't know. What?
Spawn #8.
Uh-huh.
First time Todd homaged himself, and the signature, McFarlane, after me. Ooh.
Well, at least he gave himself credit.
Smell you, Todd. All right, time for our main topic this week, which is our most wanted books for our personal collections in 2020. That's right, we're talking about ourselves now.
Oh, you mean 2022?
2020? What, did I just jump into a time machine?
Don't go back to 2020, please.
Oh, if I'm looking forward to it, let's go in the time machine. 2020, it's going to be a great year. Nothing's going to happen, anybody. It's going to be awesome. Oh, what's wrong with me? 2022, our most wanted books for 2022. Yes, it's all about us. But hang out with us, hear what we're looking for. Maybe it's something that you are in line with. Maybe you're thinking, why are you guys looking for those books? We want to hear your comments. But first, Richard is going to hit us with his first wanted book for 2022. What is it?
Well, you know, I had to have on my list someplace a Miles book.
How much?
Miles of Morales.
Okay.
This is Ultimate Comics All New Spider-Man #1, specifically the Pacelli sketch cover. That's a mouthful. This is a ghost. You know, we talk about ghosts. We're talking about books that just don't show up very often. They are very, very rare. I would consider this an ultra rare book. It is the sketch version of the regular Pacelli cover, which itself is a rare cover. So it's black and white. It was given out in some very specific circumstances. First, there was a Marvel retailer resource center giveaway for the first 10 shops that had signings for Astonishing X-Men #51. That was the famous gay marriage of North Star and Kyle Jinadu. Back in 2011. So if you were one of the first 10 stores, you got a copy of this book. Then there was supposedly also Diamond gave away copies if you ordered 5,000 of Ultimate Fallout #4 or the first print or the second print. You got a copy of this book as well.
Let me jump in here. You were expected to order 5,000 copies of a comic book in order to get this incentive?
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
2011?
Yeah.
So, first of all, if you ordered 5,000 copies of Ultimate Fallout #4, good for you, man. You are loaded right now.
Way to think forward.
I mean, screw Bitcoin. You're in it, buddy. But yeah, that's a little crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, think of how many of the variants you would have got, the ratio variants.
Right?
Yeah, so you know, there are an undetermined number of books. There's also rumors of additional copies given away at other conventions. So right now there are 4 of these books on 9.8s on the census out of a total of 6. So this is a real hard book to come by. I have only seen 1 copy on eBay since I've been looking for it, and the seller wanted $35,000 for the book.
A bargain.
Yeah. I don't know if this is obtainable. I mean, if the print run is as small as it is, it may be difficult. But you know, given what we've seen in Walmart, you know, in their value packs, you never know.
You beat me to it. I was just going to say, what would you do if you went and bought a Walmart pack and you got one of these inside of it? You would You would lose your mind, wouldn't you?
I would literally scream at the top of my lungs in the store. Yeah, it's
Well, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, this is one of those books I just want to see. I want to, if someone has a copy of this book, or if somebody comes across, please post a picture, send us a picture. I would love to actually see this book in person, or at least a photograph of it in person.
You know what I like about you, Richard? You are not afraid to set goals for yourself.
That's right. You don't get anything if you don't have goals.
I mean, there are goals, and then there's like someone needs to take you aside and sit you down and go, Richard,
hey,
here's how real life works.
Hey, you know, I never thought I'd have a Marvel Family Comics #1 either.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Keep reaching for the stars, but keep your feet on the ground, as Casey Kasem would say. All right. My first wanted book for 2022 is, shocker, Marvel Boy #1. This is the first appearance of the original Marvel Boy by Russ Heath, which is a decent issue. I've owned this in the past. I had a 7.0 before the big purge. And with issue 2, though, it got taken over by Bill Everett, and it was a beautifully drawn, really fun written book by Bill Everett. He really did some beautiful stuff on this. It only lasted for 2 issues. It was Marvel's attempt right at 1950 to create a science fiction-based superhero. It did not take off. With issue 3, it became a comic book called Astonishing, where you had a Marvel Boy lead story for the next few issues, probably unused inventory, and then just basic sci-fi, fantasy, horror stuff, filling out the rest of the issues. Now, this is a fairly inexpensive book for what it is. 4.0 sold this year in August for just $900. Compare that to what Yellow Claws go for, and you'll see why I'm going to try to grab this book pretty quick. Marvel Boy would return later in the Marvel Universe in the Fantastic Four in the mid-70s as a villain called the Crusader. He kind of lost his mind and got consumed by his quantum bands. That's right. They were quantum bands he was wearing, and they were passed on to a man in S.H.I.E.L.D. named Wendell Vaughn, who became, everybody say it with me, Quasar. Exactly. Now, with Quantum Mania coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this book might take off. So I'm going to try to grab mine pretty quick. So just pretend I didn't say anything, everyone. Just ignore the last 5-minute rant about Marvel Boy #1.
Yeah, this is a book that's been on John's radar for a while. He has a standing order with myself and our friend Forrest. We come across one in the convention to pick it up for him. So I definitely hope you get it.
I have a #2. I do think #2 is tougher to find. So I'm glad I've got that secured, but I just, haven't focused enough to get a #1. So that is definitely next.
Okay.
Speaking of next, I don't think yours is going to be any tough thing for anyone to guess what your next one is.
Yeah, I had a list. We do lists, at least I do a list at the beginning of the year of what my goals are for the coming year in terms of comics. And Albedo #2 has been on my list now for the last few years. It is the first appearance of Usagi Yojimbo. It is who is one of my favorite characters. I'm one of those people back in 1984 that was reading Stan Sakai's work, seminal work. It's great story, great character, and this is his first appearance. There are only 2,000 copies of this book in existence, and this is a really tough book. It is a black cover with some yellow in the middle of it, but for the most part, the edges are black. Tough to get in the higher grade. There are only 263 on the census right now, of which 15 of them are 9.8s. Definitely my grail book. The 9.8, though, since the last sale in 2020, was $19,800. So not a cheap book. Not a cheap book by any stretch of the means. The prices have really spiked. I remember 2 years ago, I was looking at one. It was a 7.0 for $3,500, and I was hemming and hawing about it because I wanted a higher grade, and So I lowballed the seller, and he didn't accept. So I haughtily decided that I would just wait for the next one.
I was not going to remind you of that. I was there and I witnessed the entire thing. It was brutal, you guys.
Yeah, yeah. And then it seemed like within the month that was a $7,000 book. The price had jumped that much. So, I had an opportunity. This goes back to speaking. When sometimes when an opportunity presents itself, you need to take advantage of it because you may not get another opportunity.
Yeah, but okay. You had your funny money with you, and you had 3,500 with you. You ended up getting your Fantastic Four #5. So if you had bought that Albedo, you would not have your Fantastic Four #5, which I think is the better buy.
I totally agree with you. It was, I only have so much money I can spend on this stuff, and my passion was for that Fantastic Four #5, and so I did secure that at that time. So it was one or the other, and I picked the FF5, and I think it was the smart choice because those books are they're expensive, but they're also hard to find. So I think I came out good. So now that means here I have an opportunity here this coming year, hopefully to find one. If not raw, then a nice graded one that I can afford.
I agree. I think you made the right choice. I just remember the heartbreak as you walked away from that dealer's table at the California Comic-Con in January 2020.
Yep, I still remember it was the Short Boxed had a booth there, and they had it there in the booth, and I looked at it, and then I passed it by, and so.
And we had a chance to invest in Short Box back then.
Yeah. We have to get Gene on the show. We need to get Gene on the show and talk about things. But
let's talk about their $2.5 million in venture funding.
Yeah. Congratulations, guys.
Can I have some of that? All right. My next book on my most wanted list for 2022 is a title near and dear to my heart. It is Young Men. Who doesn't love young men?
Get John some Young Men if you can.
Who can pass up Young Men, especially Young Men #25? This issue of this strange title, which featured everything from stories for boys to race car stories and to war stories. They didn't know what to do with a title called Young Men Comics. So with issue 25, they revived Timely Comics' Big Three. This is 1954. The Human Torch, Submariner, and Captain America all ended their runs in late 1949. 5 years later, this was an early attempt at reviving these superheroes. Instead of fighting Nazis, now they fought the commies, those dirty Reds.
Oh, God.
This title featured the Big Three for 5 issues. It ended with issue #28. I used to have a full run before the Big Purge. Blah, 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 John. We know, blah, 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 John. We get it, blah, 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 John. Stop telling us what you used to have. But I will say, if you're looking for this book, don't get fooled by the second print variant that was issued as part of a JCPenney comic collection through their catalog. Remember those, Richard?
Christmas? Oh, yeah, I do. The big, thick catalog, yeah.
Yes, from the mid-90s. Beware when buying this book on eBay. I bought one that was graded as a very fine near mint, and the guy was only asking $400 for it. This is about 10 years ago. And I thought, wow. I looked at all the pictures, and I was like, it looks great. He sends it to me, and it is indeed the JCPenney second print. You can only see that it's the second print on the back cover, which is a Stridex ad. That's the big giveaway. He did not have a picture of the back cover. And there's something in the small print on the back cover as well saying second print.
They didn't have Stridex back in the 50s.
No, they did not. I believe back then for acne, you just beat your face against the wall.
Sandpaper. I'm sure they use sandpaper.
Yeah. And Comet. I can't believe how few sales of this book there have been on GPA this year. I've only seen 3 on GPA this year, with a 3.5 going for just $407. I am
Do you think people are holding on to their copies?
I don't know if people are holding and hoarding, or if this just is not in demand. I think a lot of us are aging out. I see things like Albedo 2 going for $20,000, whereas this book is just not selling. I'm not sure. You guys, if you know in the comments, let us know. But I am in the market for young men. Always in the market for young men.
Okay, my next book. I thought originally of picking one from each era, but this one keeps coming up, and this is a current search of mine. Miracle Man #1, specifically the gold version from 1985. It's Eclipse Publishing. Miracle Man #1 is the first appearance of Miracle Man. The significance of this book is, in 1985 at SDCC that year, they decided to give out promotional copies of this book signed by the writer Alan Moore. And if anyone knows anything about Alan Moore, Alan does not do signings. He is not you're never going to see him at CGC doing signings of his books. So it was a rare occasion for this to happen. So they decided to have him sign a number of books, 400 books for this particular edition. And so he signed each copy, and then someone went behind and numbered them 1 through 400. And they have some extra ones as well. So sometimes you'll come across one that are signed by Alan Moore, that aren't numbered. As a matter of fact, there was one just on eBay in that situation, and those were in case something happened in the process of signing or numbering the book. There is an extra copy that you could then use that for that number. Now they're called gold because as a certificate of authenticity, each book has with it a gold piece of paper with information about the book, and it was written by Stan Sakai. So you'll see Stan Sakai on that COA, and you'll also have the number of the book on that COA. There's also a blue edition, which has a blue piece of paper. These books came out of the first 1,000 copies of the print run for Miracle Man. There were 135,000 copies for the full run. It is not recognized by CGC as a signed book. CGC, if you get this book, you won't get it green labeled because Alan Moore signed the book on the first page as opposed to on the cover. If he had signed it on the cover, you would get a green qualified label. But here you get a blue label, but it says writing and number and ink on first page on the label. That's the only kind of indicator that this is one of those special books. So we really don't know how many are on the census right now.
Wow. So did you ever see one? Have you ever run across one?
Yes, I've seen there was one just on eBay. The auction just ended for one of the non-numbered books. It was raw, and it ended up going for about $400, if I remember correctly. There is a 9.6 graded on eBay right now for $2,000, which is more than I'm willing to spend. The last sale in 2020 for 9.8 was $312. So I'm hoping to find one more closer to that than the $2,000 number.
What do you think about the unnumbered ones? Are those legit?
They are legit, but I think they are less valuable than the ones that are actually numbered.
Okay.
And that's again, that was my preference. I wanted to get one of the numbered books. It's any of these books raw are any of these books at all, really. It's difficult to quantify whether they're real or if they are counterfeit. So there's potential of counterfeit for these books, which is one of the reasons why I think the value, what you should pay for this book should be tempered, because it's a signature that you write in the inside cover and a number and a photocopied certificate of ownership.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to fake, is my opinion. So I would temper your enthusiasm about it, taking that into account. But it's Miracle Man #1. This is one of the seminal books for me reading comic books. It taught me that everything wasn't for color in the comic book world, and there was nuances. There were consequences to wielding the power that these super characters wielded. And it was fascinating. It changed my attitude towards, superheroes as being these, like Superman, this pantheon of virtue. They're not. They can be flawed, and they can make mistakes just like normal humans can do. And this was my first real experience of that. So this book has always been an important book to me.
And with issue number 9, it taught me where babies come from. All right, my next book is Captain America's Weird Tales number 74. Talk about being aspirational. I was joking with you earlier about how it is your turn to give me the same amount of grief, because this book is really exploded. This was the last issue of the original Captain America run from the Golden Age that featured Captain America. There was one additional issue, number 75, of course, which was just nothing but horror stories. Cap wasn't even on the cover. This title was later revived for a short 3-issue run in 1954, as I mentioned when we talked about young men. Can't keep talking about young men. But Captain America Weird Tales number 74 is a tough book. But I will say it shows up for sale a lot more often than you would think. A 4.5 sold this year for $12,620. A 9.2 from the Promise Collection sold this year for $204,000. I will say that 9.2 from the Promise Collection got a real nice gift grade with a bow on top of it. That ain't no 9.2. Take a look at it sometime. Go ahead.
I would love to see. I would have loved to have seen those Promise books before they were slabbed, and be able to give some predictions of what they graded. I'm sure they kind of got an advantage over the curve.
I don't know, but I will say that's a generous 9.2. Now, I had a 2.5 that I got raw off of eBay from a seller in Canada about 9 years ago. I paid over $3,000 for it. And boy, waiting for that thing to be shipped from Canada was like the most nail-biting experience. I was like, is this legit? Is it going to come through? Am I going to be covered if it gets damaged? I had it delivered to work instead of home because I was so worried about it getting stolen. And it came through, and it was about a 2.0, and I pressed it and I got a 2.5 out of it. And then blah, 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 blah. I sold it in the purge, blah, blah, blah. So I think that has put me at a disadvantage because now I have a hard time paying the prices I'm seeing for it now, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I only paid $33,000 for that book. I'm not going to pay any more for that condition. And I got to get over that if I really.
Hey, somebody only paid 10 cents for that book, John.
I know. I got to get over that. But it's still a weird thing that happens with me is like, I've done this long enough that I have in my mind, oh, this is what I paid for it back then, and that's what it's worth. And no, John, things increase in value over 9 years, especially Captain America's Weird Tales number 74, which, by the way, if you've never read it, there's a CBZ of it. There's a digital file of it that floats around. It is not worth the hype. Basically, the Red Skull's in hell, and he's mad that he's in hell. So he goes to the book of hell, and he sneaks in and gets past the devil and writes Captain America's name in the book. And the rules are, if your name's in the book, then you have to go to hell. So the devil goes and brings Captain America to hell. Not for 1 second going, well, what's his real name? I can't. It's a wacky story. So basically, Cap is like, hey, my name was written in there falsely. And instead of going, oh, mistake, clerical error, we're going to send you back to Earth. The devil says, okay, but you got to fight the Red Skull and defeat him before we'll send you back to Earth. And guess what? Cap punches him once, story's over.
Hey, a lot of these stories, these Golden Age books, you don't buy for the story. I'm sorry.
By the way, spoiler alert, if you're planning on buying a copy and reading it anytime soon. But yeah, it is insane. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, this is an expensive book, but this is one of those blue chip books that it's an investment. I could see this book, that 4.5 is 12.6 now. In a year or two, that could be 14, and it's going to continue to go up. in value. So yeah, if you do manage to overcome your adversity towards paying money for this book, I think this is going to be a good book to buy.
I wish I had bought it 25 years ago when it was much more affordable.
It was.
Like the next book, which is a part of the 25-year rule. Look. It wasn't horrible.
That was serviceable. That was serviceable.
All right, Dean, let me know what you thought of that. All right, 25-year rule this week features the last issue of a title that ran for a lot longer than it really should have, if you think about it, and that is the Ren and Stimpy Show, issue 44. This is the last issue of this humor title, based, of course, on the infamous Nickelodeon cartoon, which I loved, at least the John Krzyzewski era. Say his name. Very problematic now. Sorry about that. But 44 issues is a pretty decent run for a humor title.
Yeah, I'm surprised it ran that long.
Especially during the crash in the mid-90s. In like 94, 95, it survived and still kept going. Strangely enough, no GBA sales for this issue, but you can get it on eBay for about $25 for a decent near mint copy. It has, of course, a low print run because Marvel in 1996 had low print runs, and this was a humor title, and it was a last issue, so it's fairly tough to find. Believe it or not, there's a newsstand edition of this book as well.
Wow. Good
luck with that if you're looking for it. There is a low grade copy that just sold on eBay for about $8. So who knows what a 9.8 newsstand of Ren and Stimpy 44 would go for, if anybody cared. I guess that's the first thing.
I don't know. You know, that's Ren and Stimpy was just such a seminal cartoon back in the day. It was groundbreaking in, you know, it just took weird to a new level. So I could see people, you know, being a resurgence of this show. And if there is at some point in the next 10 years, you know, maybe people will come out looking for this book.
Maybe we'll all catch space madness and win a full run of Ren and Stimpy.
Yes. Powdered toast, man.
All right. Time for our underrated books of the week. Richard, I love yours.
Yeah. My choice is Adventure Comics number 267 from 1959. This is the second appearance of the Legion of Superheroes. Legion, I've said this a number of times over this podcast, I started reading comic books because of the Legion of Superheroes. My dad gave me a stack of heavily read adventure comics, and some had covers, some of them didn't. I didn't care. I read that stack over and over and over again. So, you know, this is ingrained in my psyche. But this is the second appearance of the Legion of Superheroes. The first appearance is quite expensive. This, though, allows, you know, it has characters like Lightning Lad, Saturn Girl, Superboy, and Cosmic Boy. And I think it's going to be an important issue to have in your collection. Right now, DC Comics are really getting a short shrift in terms of in competition with the MCU. Everybody wants the Marvel books. Everybody wants, you know, the Spider-Mans and the Wolverines. I think mainly because DC has had a problem having a cohesive strategy for their movies. But eventually that's going to change. And you know, right now is the perfect time to buy these issues of the DC keys while people are focusing on the Marvel keys, because eventually they're going to turn, you know, the market will turn back to DC and the DCU. CGC, there's 240 on the census, the highest being 9.2s. The pricing on this book it's not cheap, but it's lower than you would think. This is a book from 1959. A 6.0 is $295. An 8.5 goes for about $1,275, which to me, for a book from this era, is just really, really reasonable. So you have an opportunity now to kind of buy these books, these keys from DC while they're still relatively affordable.
I think the Legion has just had the crap beat out of it as a concept over the last 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years. Ever since Crisis, the Legion's just been used and abused. which is sad because it's a great concept. It had such a rabid fan base in the 70s and the 80s that they had their own fanzines. They had there was the most popular DC title at one point in terms of sales, and just to see how they just let the Legion die on the vine, it makes me sad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's a concept that has a never-ending list of potential protagonists, right? You've got your core characters, but then there's all these other characters that you could write stories about, and to not take advantage of that kind of wealth of and breadth of characters is unfortunate. But I still think it's the Legion of Superheroes is one of those pillars of the DC mythos, and we will eventually cycle through, and Marvel DC will take advantage of them in a way that's going to make investment in this book, I think, a profitable.
I have a theory as why it's just been so mishandled. The original concept of the Legion of Superheroes was about optimism. It took place in the future. It was a bright, shiny future where, you know, stuff happened, but there was enough faith in the youth that they were deputized and allowed to be society's, the universe's protectors. And they were always fighting for the greater good and for the future to be an optimistic place. And we don't have time for optimism anymore. It's all about cynicism. It's all about dark, dark, dark. You can't have a DC universe movie without rain pouring down and gray tones and brown tones, and God forbid a primary color show up in a trailer for DC. All right, I'll stop.
No, but you're right. You're right. It was birthed in an era where things were simpler in terms of plots in comic books, for example, and there weren't the darker shades that we have explored here, you know, ever since things like Frank Miller's The Dark Knight. And
well, wait, there were darker Legion reboots. The 5 years later reboot by Levitz and Geffen. I love that. That's the one time I read the Legion regularly. Was that 80s reboot. It can be done, but there was always the whole thing about 5 years later is the Legion's been destroyed, everything's in shambles, and yet they're so optimistic they build it back up and they try to get back where they were. And I don't think the solution is hiring Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see. I mean, it's there are so many potential storylines out of there. Yeah. That I think that DC would be it'd be criminal if they don't take advantage of their rich backlog of characters, and this is, to me, it's an unending source of potential stories.
It is. I mean, last week, I don't know how many of you still listen to Howard Stern. He talked about Bouncing Boy for about an hour.
Did he really?
He did. About how, you know, it was a riff on how ridiculous Bouncing Boy was, but he knew about the Legion lore and everything. So it, you know, there's still some goodwill from us.
Sure. Not every Legion character is great. I mean, there's Matter Eater Lad. Yeah, you know, but it's like you say, the optimism, and people celebrated the uniqueness of each character, and I think that's a powerful. It's a powerful thing to carry forward to the next generation.
I agree. I'd love to see someone get a real fresh, unique take on it and try to bring it back to its prominence. We'll keep hoping. Meanwhile, I'm going to yell at all of you. Because my underrated book of the week is Strange Tales 135. This is the first appearance of S.H.I.E.L.D. Why is this so undervalued? I'm yelling at all of you, especially you Marvel Universe people, you Marvel Cinematic Universe people. This, along with Strange Tales number 101, the first Silver Age solo Human Torch story, these have always been the redheaded stepchildren of the Marvel Silver Age first appearances. That, you know, long before it was Ant-Man, nobody cared about Ant-Man. As important as S.H.I.E.L.D. is to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, WandaVision, Avengers, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why this book is still so undervalued. I'm going to give you an example. A 9.4 sold this year, which is really high grade for this book, for $3,250. May I remind you, earlier this episode, a 9.8 of Albedo 2 sold for almost $20,000.
Right.
I mean, the first appearance of Brother Friggin' Voodoo is almost selling for as much, for gosh sakes. Throw me a bone here, people. Why are people ignoring Strange Tales 135, Richard?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe because there is no, I mean, there's no iconic character that comes out of that book. You know, no single character like that would come out of like Albedo 2, for example.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Nick Fury,
right?
You got the first appearance of the Eye Patch. It's not the same Nick Fury because it's not Samuel L. Jackson. Is that part of it? Maybe.
No, I don't think it is. I think at least to me, I see comic book people identifying with the Caucasian Nick Fury with the eye patch and the cigar, and as well as with Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of the character. I feel there's comfort to be able to support both of those. I just think that there isn't a singular character that you can latch on to for S.H.I.E.L.D. It's like, here's the first issue, the first appearance of the FBI. It's difficult to attach significance to an ideal versus an individual. And I think that might be part of it.
No, because the first issue of G.I. Joe is basically the same thing.
But you got all those characters with all those names, and they're
okay, all right.
Yeah,
all right, you're right. The first issue of Nick Fury, by the way, or first issue of S.H.I.E.L.D., first appearance, if you've never read the story, it's basically Nick Fury gets recruited by Tony Stark to lead up this new super spy organization. Hydra tries to kill him, and he says, sure, they tried to kill me, so I'll join.
A little bit different than the MCU.
Yeah, I guess he likes danger. But it makes me beat my head against the desk that this book is still so undervalued for as major as it is. Maybe I'm alone. You guys let me know in the comments. But until then, we are going to wave bye-bye until our bonus episode later this week. Remember, Richard, what should they do with this up here?
Well, they should go on Facebook and Instagram to Bronze and Modern Gods, or go to the website at www.bronzeandmoderngods.com.
And we will see you later this week. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe.